Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Gradcracker webinar, where I'm really excited to be joined by Stantec. Stantec is a global consultancy that employs 26,000 people working in 400 locations across 6 continents. Their team of experts provides engineering, architecture, environmental, and project management services across all phases of the project lifecycle. Right now, they have over 100 graduate roles open to applications on their graduate hub and are recruiting in the region of 180 graduates in 2023. So there's plenty of roles to choose from. Today, we're joined by Amy, Phoebe, Omar, and Josh to tell us more about the schemes themselves and how to land that dream job at Stantec. So firstly, let's start by meeting Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Sophie.
Please, could you start by telling our audience a bit more about Stantec, what you do, and your business goals?
Yeah, of course. So Stantec, we are a global professional services consultancy, and we work across quite a lot of different sectors. So that includes water, energy, transport, buildings, and community development. And we're kind of made up of a lot of multidisciplinary teams. So that would include engineers, project managers, planners, designers, just to name a few. But we've worked on some really big infrastructure projects, such as the HS2 rail project. We've also worked on the London sewer network, and we work with quite a lot of big clients, such as National Highways and National Rail, and National Grid, sorry. So in terms of our goals, we always want to do things with the community in mind. That's one of our values. So we also want to be really sustainable in everything that we do and all of our designs. And at the moment, we're really, looking to grow the business quite a lot, and recruiting graduates is a really big part of that.
Yeah.
And also Barton Wilmore, the planning design consultancy, have recently joined Stantec, so that just kind of increases our growth even more as well.
Fantastic. And could you tell our audience a little bit more about your particular role within Stantec, Amy?
Yeah, so I'm a talent acquisition specialist in our early careers team. So I'm part of a team of a few people, and I would be looking after all of the graduate recruitment process, mainly across the water and energy sectors at Stantec.
Fantastic. And how many people work within your team, and do they all work over like a particular division or a particular area of Stantec?
Yeah, so in the early careers team, there's 3 of us. So my colleague Claire, she works across the kind of transport, buildings and community development side of things. And Jenny, she kind of supports both of us in different areas, and she looks after apprenticeships as well.
Brilliant. So during the recruitment process, anyone applying to Stantec, would they either be speaking to yourself, Amy, or Claire or Jenny? Yeah,
either one of us, yeah.
Brilliant. And I can assure you that Claire and Jenny are just as lovely as Amy. So, anybody that's watching it. So we've mentioned about the huge amount of roles that you're recruiting for this year, which is absolutely phenomenal. But could you give a quick overview to the type of opportunities that you recruit for and a little bit more about the graduate scheme, Amy?
Yeah, of course. So I think even though we've got over 100 on the Gradcracker site, we've got about 185 actual live vacancies that graduates can apply for. So that would be across all different areas. So all different types of engineers, civil, mechanical, electrical, process engineers, river and coastal engineers, so more focused on the water side of things. Also got roles such as transport planners, economics, project management, and also some digital roles. So that would be kind of like data science, data analytics, and that's just some of them. There's so many more.
So many roles.
Yeah, loads. So in terms of the graduate scheme itself, so it's a 2.5-year programme, and within that the graduates have access to lots of different training. So there would be virtual and also in-person training, so you get to go and meet graduates from across the business and in different teams. And the training is kind of split up, so it'll focus on more kind of soft skills, so developing your presentation, your communication, leadership skills, but also you'll have that more kind of technical training on the job within your team. You'll also get a mentor as well, so someone who's got that experience and has been through it themselves and is able to kind of support you to start kind of working towards your chartership or any professional qualifications.
Fantastic. So there's so many things that you've just touched upon there that is so important to our audience. So I think one of the things that's quite often overlooked during when people are applying to graduate schemes or thinking about how they might work is that soft skills that you've touched upon and how important that is to supporting your technical growth as well, and everything that you do at work. And then chartership and professional accreditation is obviously incredibly important. So, you can hear just from that brief introduction that Stantec will help you with all of those different things. So finally, Amy, before we kind of go on to meet the rest of the panel, location. So I know our 3 graduates today are in different locations, and you obviously recruit and have projects across the whole of the UK. So where could your graduates be based, and do they need to specify different locations during the recruitment process, or how does that element of the recruitment work?
Yeah, so we've got 21 offices across the UK. So that runs from the north, Scotland, Wales, all the way down to the south. London. But we've also got office in Dublin, and we've just recently opened one in Belfast as well. So there's so many different locations that graduates could be based in. However, not every team recruits in every office. So you will need to kind of look at the job advert on Gradcracker and have a look and see what location it's based in. Some of the opportunities we've got multiple locations, and some will just have one specific location. So it's always best to kind of have a look at that and see if it's a location that you'd like to be based in.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Amy. And yeah, just so many opportunities and so many different places. There really is something for everybody at Stantec. So what we're going to do now is move across to quickly meet our graduates. We'll just find out more about you. But let's just start with you, Phoebe, just finding out where you went to university, what you studied, and when you joined Stantec.
So I went to the University of Leeds and I studied geography and geology there, but with an industrial year, so that's like a placement year. And I joined Stantec in 2021, so June 2021.
Fantastic. And you did your placement with another consultancy, didn't you, before coming back to decide Stantec was right for you?
Yeah, I
Brilliant.
did.
Go on.
I was going to say, I met Stantec whilst I was on my industrial placement, whilst I was working for the other company, and came here in the end.
Brilliant. So they made an impression then straight away.
They did, definitely.
Fab.
And that's
Josh...
another great reason, though, to do a placement. Whether the placement goes really well, or you think, actually, no, this is not the right company for me. But that's just another perfect example of how doors can open up.
Definitely. Great opportunities to network.
Yeah.
100%.
Go into final year knowing, right, this is the company I do want to apply to when I'm finished. Fantastic.
Brilliant. Josh, next to you, where did you go to uni? What did you study? And when did you join Stantec?
So I spent 3 years for my undergrad at Northumbria University in Newcastle. And then I did a year's master in Glasgow. And I joined Stantec in April of this year. So been here for about 8 months now.
Fantastic. And your degrees were in civil engineering, weren't they, Josh?
Both in civil engineering, yeah, sorry.
Great. And then Omar, finally to you, where did you go to uni? What did you study? And when did you join Stantec?
So I went to uni in Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh. So I did an MN course, civil engineering. So that's a 5-year course. I was, and I joined Stantec in September 2020. So just when I left my course.
Brilliant.
Summer, and then
Fantastic. So all of you at slightly different stages in your career. So going to head over to you now, Jess, to find out more about what everyone's been doing.
Thanks. Okay, Josh, I'm going to come to you first because you are top of my list. If you could just tell everyone in a bit more detail about your current role at Stantec and a bit about the team that you work in.
So my current role, I joined as a graduate in the civil engineering team and working with the community development team. So I work for Kent I work for Kent, but in London. So it's a bit of a weird role in terms of meeting with my team. But as the current sort of working environment is, it's all on Teams anyway. So it's worked out really well.
Yeah. So in terms of the kind of hybrid approach, is that something obviously you've adapted, it's working, and how are you finding that kind of transition, coming into a team? You say you've been there 8 months, but you're doing it in, from a hybrid perspective. Have you found that easy? And is it?
To be honest, yeah. I feel like everyone that I've spoken to is just absolutely lovely, to be honest. Very easy to speak to, and
Yeah.
sort of very open in terms of if you ever have a question, they're very just, no one says, oh, I don't have time for that, or can it wait a little bit? Like, they will stop whatever they're doing and talk to you straight away. So even though it's on Teams, they're amazing, to be honest.
Oh, that's a lovely thing to say. So Josh, go in a bit more detail then, if you don't mind, about your role and what you've been doing over the last 8 months.
So yeah, when I first joined, so I'd obviously done like 4 years at university doing civil engineering, but didn't really have much of an idea what I'd actually end up doing. But
which
my
is quite
current
common.
role,
A lot of students say that, don't they? You know, that they've studied this, but how does that apply to
it's all
industry?
theory.
Yeah.
So my current role is with we're doing on-site SUDS is mainly what I do, which is sustainable urban drainage.
Okay.
So a lot of water-based stuff, that alongside foul drainage. So it's not very fun to talk about at parties or whatever, but it's fun for me, yeah.
So is this kind of, are you looking after kind of current systems, or are you creating a new stuff? How's it work?
So I've worked on a couple of projects that are sort of different in terms of what stage they're at. I'd say that the main one that I'm currently on is Otterpool, it's called. It's in Kent, and it's like a 10,000 home development. So that's all very in the future. I think I'll probably be about 60 years old when it's finished. So that'll be good.
Right.
It's really nice. But no, and then there's another one where it's currently existing, but we need to alter it slightly based on the constraints that we found within the site, which is the foul drainage.
Right.
So there's good different roles that I've done so far.
Yeah, good stuff. So in terms of, Amy kind of touched upon it, it's something that, every industry at the moment is looking at the moment, and how to be sustainable and things like that. So I can imagine even in your role in design and planning, I'm angling at this because you said, the project's going to be about 50 by the time you finish, but is it because, things are changing all the time? You've got to think of good ways of doing it and how you can be as sustainable as possible.
Yeah. With the massive project it's going to take around 30-40 years, you need to think for the future. So basically, we take a lot of environmental considerations into our design. So with climate change, obviously it's massive and has been for years, but we need to sort of predict how that's going to interact with our design in, like I say, 30 years. So we're designing with like 15-20% on top of what we should be doing, just so that the networks can take like the loading of like the water that the 10,000 homes are going to be producing. So it's a massive sort of influence in our design.
Yeah, 100%. You think like that, you think how our lives have completely changed over, say, the last 3-4 years. So what life is going to be like in, the next 30-40 years, it's going to be completely different. So interesting stuff. So Josh, we'll come back to you a bit more about detail about projects and stuff, but thanks for the introduction. Omar, I'm going to come to you next, if that's okay. If it's the same kind of question, you could tell us a bit more about your role and the current team that you're working in.
Yeah, so when I joined back in 2020, I joined the HS2 design assurance team.
Sure.
And I worked on so the HS2 and all the associated structures that comes with it, the stations, the shafts, obviously the two giant tunnels that will go through London and Chiltern Hills. So all the impact of these structures on Thames water utilities and all, I did kind of a rotational kind of program where I joined the geotechnical team as well, working on the vibration and impact of the tunnels on the underground utilities. So last year, I kind of joined a different team now. I'm working on the pipeline team, working on different projects across the country. And even, I worked on projects in Cyprus and Ireland. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I've been kind of working on, the two things that I like the most, which is kind of water and structures.
So in terms of the change, is that encouraged because you were part of the graduate program, or was that something you decided, I want to experience more and get, as much experience as I can during that kind of program period?
Yeah, it's kind of both. So I always express interest in kind of, knowing more about different things because as Josh said, when you join, you kind of don't know what you want to do. You do a lot of things at uni and then you kind of join and you're not very sure. So I joined the design assurance team and I learned so much about the kind of like the general civil role. And then, I kind of wanted to get more experience, more technical in geotechnics and then pipeline potentially. So this is what I did. A role came up and I just put my hand up and say, yeah, I can. Someone, So the geotechnical engineer wanted, some help with all the reviews he was doing. So, that was partly. So when I did the geotechnical experience and then that kind of my experience in the civil design and design assurance and the geotechnical experience kind of added up. So now I joined the pipeline team. And that was a very good experience for me.
And tell us a bit more about the team then. So was there differences in the teams in terms of size, in terms of location? Tell us a bit about that and how that works and what's the team looking like now that you're in?
So my team works across the UK. So I have people working in Glasgow, in Leeds and in London. We do sometimes kind of meet. Mostly we work on teams, but we sometimes work, closely together in the High Wycombe office. And if there's any site visit that we need to go to, but yeah, our work team is mostly across the UK.
Yeah, brilliant, and that's good. Sorry.
Jess, before you go on, I'm going to take that opportunity to just go and ask Amy a question. I don't know what that noise was.
It's a big wagon that just went past my house and just slammed on. I thought it was going to
that's what it was.
I don't know if you heard it beep then. I was like,
Amy, just wanted to touch upon something that Omar mentioned then about the fact that he's kind of changed departments and changed teams. How common is that during the graduate programme, and is that something that is encouraged? How's that normally set up?
Yeah, it can happen sometimes. So I know of some graduates that have started off in one team and then they might move to another, or they might do a secondment for a little while to try out something completely different. I would say it's not something that can be guaranteed. Usually you will kind of, join the team that you've applied for and that's the team that you would stay in. But yeah, potentially things might come up and, maybe you might start in the water team and you might find that you're interested in more kind of energy projects.
Yeah.
I know people have kind of moved across to that side of things. So it can happen and there is opportunities there if you are interested.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the benefit of working for an organisation like Stantec, where you do have so many different projects and so many different teams that, if there is something out there that you are interested in, have a conversation about that and see whether it's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
and that's just
you,
a
Amy.
Massive top tip for any students that are listening. It is about asking, isn't it? It's about having those conversations and putting yourself in those situations to say, look, I'm interested in this. Like you, I think you, Omar, you even said it, you put your hand up and said, hi, can I be involved in this? I'm interested. And, students, listening to this now, take that on board when you are applying for Stantec and don't be afraid to ask, when you do land that job, say, I want to experience as much as I can. The saying is, be like a sponge and just take it all in and, use this time. So yeah, really great that you did that, Omar. So
sorry, the other thing on that,
I
was just going to say, the flip side of that is I found that so many like senior people in their teams love it when you're like interested in what they're doing. Like they love to talk about it. So if you go over to a team that you're not working in and you're like, oh, what does this do? Like, what do you do here? They love to talk about it. So you're always going to get a positive reception.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. You know about yourself, if anyone shows an interest in your own role, you're like, oh yeah, I can tell you that, I can tell you this. So yeah, absolutely. And it's nice that you feel that you can ask, because already there seems a very common thread between all of you that you've got a lovely team. You can ask, you're wanting to support one another, whether if you're a senior or you've just started the organization. So again, it's interesting how you've all saying very similar things.
I was going to say, Josh made that point very early on, didn't you, Josh, that everyone's got the time for you. If you want to ask questions, that someone's going to always make time for you. So that's great.
Very good. So sorry, Phoebe, coming back to you as well. If you could just tell us a bit more about your role and the team, obviously you work in.
So my role is a graduate wastewater network modeler. A bit of a mouthful, but it's basically a urban drainage hydraulic modeler. So I work in what's called the infra feasibility team. So we work with local water companies, providing solutions for drainage. We work a lot on growth schemes. So they're when a sort of an area's got loads of new developments planned for like the next 10 years. And we sort of assess what impact that has on the existing network and then design solutions to like mitigate that. And as Josh said, we will design solutions to also incorporate climate change as well. Into all of our solutions. And then we also do flood alleviation schemes. So that's if an area is really prone to flooding, we'll investigate the causes of it and again design solutions to mitigate that. And yeah, it's basically everything hydraulic under the ground.
So in terms of, the pressures then, living in an area that floods quite often, York is, renowned for it. I guess the pressures for you guys are changing constantly as well because of things like climate change, new housing developments going up, making sure, it's not on a piece of land which does flood. So I can imagine it's, again, changing. There'll be new pressures all the time, is there?
Yeah, definitely. So in our line of work, there's a lot of, especially at the moment, interest from the media in like flooding, but also you've probably come across sort of spills from what are called sewer overflows into rivers. And that's been all over the media recently. So we get a lot of attention from like local MPs and stuff. So certain jobs that we work on are considered quite high priority and sort of really flagged to everyone. So you have got to make sure that all your stakeholders, like everyone's happy, you're communicating. And sometimes, there is a lot of pressure, but it's a good pressure, I think, because you know that at the end of the day, you're doing the right thing and all you're trying to do is like make sure that they're happy and they know that you're trying to do that. So yeah, it sort of comes with a job, but it's good pressure.
Yeah, I can imagine that. There is that satisfaction. A days, hard days at work, you get home, you think, well, I'm doing good. I'm helping, to stop anything horrendous like that happening. So yeah, that must be really good. In terms of your team as well, a bit more about your team. Is it like a big team? Is there quite a lot of you? Is there many grads in the team? What's it looking like?
So our team is sort of average size. I'd say there's about 15 of us in our specific team. It's a very good mixture of sort of seniors, graduates. We've got a couple of apprentices.
Stuff I was to our heads when we do this. She's gone.
Looks so Phoebe.
Man above me disappeared. She was talking, but then she wasn't moving, wasn't she? And then...
I know. She even said this morning when we caught up that she's like hardwired her internet in to make sure that. So anyway, let's carry on and we'll come back when Phoebe comes back.
We'll come back. So next, I want to talk about projects. So in a bit more detail, maybe about a favourite project or a project you've worked on that stood out to you so far that you really, really enjoyed. So Josh, I'll come back to you first. Tell me a bit more about that if that's possible.
I'd say I think I have a favourite project at the moment, is the Otterpool one that I've already mentioned. Just because it's such an interesting project because it's sort of so far into the future, and it's also 10,000 homes, but 50% of the actual land area that they've acquired is going to be green space. So it's just a very sort of interesting and sort of sustainable way of thinking in terms of how we're going to build our developments in the future. But then I've got another one where I'm pretty proud of it. Basically, I started it from its initial conception and to where it is now, which is like at the planning application stage. So it's good that so I've had exposure to both like humongous projects, if that's the way to put it, and also it's a bit of a smaller one, but also like important to me because I basically did all the legwork for it, which I really enjoyed getting that exposure and having to talk to the local council to sort of agree that if my design was all right. And obviously it wasn't just me. I've only been here 8 months, but I did a lot of the work and it was fed back, and then I would get feedback, and I really enjoyed that one.
So something I talk about a lot, but in terms of responsibility then, because I was about to even ask you that, it is 8 months you've been there, isn't it? And that sounds like a lot that you've achieved in that kind of short space of time. Again, and the responsibility on top of that. So it sounds as though there is a lot of responsibility given to you early on.
Yeah, it's funny actually, in my interview itself, my now line manager put it a really good way. He said, you're basically thrown in the deep end, but you've always got a safety float next to you. So if like, try your best to like flourish within the pressures that you're given. But if you are struggling or you need a little bit of help, there's always people to ask. Like I said before, they're always open to ask. So yeah.
And
I think that's a really nice thing, though, isn't it? That you go in and you know that you've always got that support, people to rely on, but you're also given the opportunity to work in your own way. So rather than being forced into some sort of mold or how somebody else wants you to do it, you've got the opportunity to really figure out how you can get the best out of yourself and out of the project that you put on, because you have got that freedom to explore how you might want to do it. But like you said, with having the huge backup of an organization like Stantec with all that experience and all those expertise within it. So,
and again, maybe a bit naive from my point, but it's interesting as well. I didn't really think about that aspect of having to communicate your ideas externally. You're saying about, local authorities, stuff like this, MPs and things like that. So there's the pressure of, you were communicating internally, but communicating your ideas out to people who aren't necessarily engineers, who aren't necessarily, trained in that industry, and say, right, this is my idea, this is what we're suggesting, and convincing them that it's a good idea. And I guess it's a bit silly, really. Obviously, you're going to be doing that, but it's not a part of the job which I thought you would be involved in as well, do you find that interesting? Do you find that nerve-wracking?
I mean, I'm trying to get exposed more to that because I'm wanting to sort of speak up. That I'm comfortable talking to anyone, but as soon as like a camera's on or like you go into a meeting room, it sort of changes. But I'd say it's really interesting because you've obviously done your design and it inside out. But like you say, you're not always speaking to people that are civil engineers, so you have to sort of interpret it in a way that's easy to understand for everyone, which is interesting because then I think it sort of solidifies what you've learned when you've designed it, summarizing it in a way that everyone can access. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, I can imagine you get a bit of a kick out of that bit. It's then that's the exciting bit. It's like the ta-da, it's my work. No, I like that. That's really good, Josh. So I'm going to come to you next, if you don't mind. Favorite project that you've worked on so far, or project that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, I worked on many different projects, to be honest, and one of the most, one of the projects that stood out the most to me is the working on the screening study for the design of Cheddar Reservoir 2 and the cross-country pipeline. So that's basically, it's part of a long-term planning to meet the future needs of water. So we are heavily involved in the design of the cross-country pipeline. But it's interesting that, we've seen it last summer that with all the climate change, how it's affecting the water supply and, how much that, can affect us in the future. So to be involved in this part of the project, I thought it was very interesting to me, just to see that this is going to be a reservoir to extract the water or the abundance of water right now, and that will be supplied in the future to a more water-deprived areas in the southwest.
Okay.
So, I was going to say, it's my neck of the woods. I live near Cheddar, so.
Don't turn your taps on, stuff.
No, I won't. Save all the water.
Are you still in the hosepipe, man? Sorry, so being silly. So, Matt, so in terms of, tell us a bit more about that, in terms of what's it looking like, how were you involved in it, what were you doing?
Well, I think so. Now we are in the kind of screening, what we call it SRO, so the strategic resource option. So we look at the different options, and we have about 50 potential sites, and we kind of whittle it down to a few that we assess the suitability, the constraints in terms of like environment, constructability, and even like stakeholder constraints. We look at all these options, in terms of, and it's very interesting that I work with different people from, say, the environmental team, or the ecology team, and work on things that I've not worked on before, just to see what's the suitability of, say, like pipeline going through wetlands, or woodlands, or kind of historic areas. And so we do all that kind of stuff right now. And then we go into a bit more details when we think about the design of pipeline, and how we think about the fittings, the pumping stations and the requirement for it, even like wastewater treatment sites, that we think about how can we connect and optimize the network and use the existing networks. And stuff like that.
So do you say that you've come off this project now?
Yes. So I kind of did a part of it, but the project will continue, it's for many years to come. So I'm kind of following it.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. I can imagine, if you get invested in projects like this, and I'm sure Josh, you'll probably back this up, because you don't know where you're going to be in 60 years' time when the system's finally signed off. But it'd be nice, kind of keeping your kind of ear to the ground on projects like that to make sure you know what's happening. Because again, it's going to be a learning curve, because what you might be agreeing now, deciding now, might change again in 5 years' time, or you might get a different angle. So really, really interesting there. And it's interesting as well to hear, again, naively, but all across the different kind of groups of people within the organizations, and all kind of, impressions that you're going to get from the different groups. Everyone's going to have different ideas. Everyone's going to be pushing a certain thing, whether it's the ecologists wanting you to do one thing and to be careful of one thing, and then you've got a drive to do something else. So it must be quite interesting hearing all that, and then coming up with a decision. That'll be my biggest problem, being a problem solver. So I'm not an engineer. You've got to have that mindset, haven't you? Hearing all everyone's opinions and then thinking, right, let's drive this forward, and this is what's going to work. Do you find that an enjoying part of the job?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you said, when I came into the project, you think that it's going to be really difficult, but then when you kind of work on it, the environmental engineers know quite a bit on what would the pipeline engineer need. So they've already done this before. And this is the good part of like working with very knowledgeable people, and in a company that has decades of experience. So these kind of things kind of move smoothly in terms of people already know how to kind of push the project together as one team. Obviously you're going to get so many challenges, but that's part of being engineers, finding innovative solutions to kind of overcome that.
Yeah, good stuff. Fab, thank you so much for that, Omar. Okay, Phoebe, I'm going to come to you next. Favorite project you worked on so far?
So I think mine will have to be what was titled the Green Recovery Scheme for Severn Trent Water. So that was a huge project where I'm pretty sure the government funded some of it as well. A massive push to try and, as the title says, be green and get the networks in specific areas. So I worked on the project in Leamington, so that the river that runs through the area becomes of bathing water standard. So like that it's clean enough basically that people can swim in it. But to achieve that, the water companies need to ensure that their sewer overflows only spill to the river 3 times per bathing season. So they're basically assets which spill diluted sewerage into rivers during storm events. And they wanted that number to be 3 basically every bathing season. And that was a huge task. So some of these spill like 100 times. So it's not like this was like a simple thing to do. So it was a really big push, like so many people were involved. So it was great in that sense that there was loads of people working on the project at the same time and lots of different teams. From our point of view, I'd sort of designed some of the solutions and options to try and bring these spills down. So we come up with sort of, I think it was about 4 options in the end. And you sort of have to design them, and I run the hydraulic model to make sure that they work, what I'm proposing works, and then present the results back to the client at the end of it. So that was a really good project because because it was so pushed by sort of the government and the media attention, it was quite a quick one in the sense of I got to see sort of the whole stage that we look after in a really short space of time. So I was able to do that sort of handing over to the client as well and doing those presentations, which was great experience for me. And I was really fortunate that my manager let me do that. So yeah, it was just really big and fun.
It must be really exciting to see a project from start to finish and then do that handover bit. That must be like the best bit. That's like,
when they're like, that's a good idea and it works. Exactly. I like it.
So Phoebe, if you don't mind me asking, you can tell me no if you can't give any trade secrets away, but how would you get from 100 spills down to 3? What was the answer?
Lots of storage.
Lots of storage.
Lots of storage. Somewhere to put all that water.
Well, this is the thing,
but that's the other thing. So we always propose sort of a green solution and what we call a grey solution in engineering. So the grey is more like what you think of as just concrete, basically. So yeah, more storage and building big tanks basically to put the water in. And then the green solution is things like SUDS that Josh mentioned earlier, so sustainable urban drainage systems, a lot of new surface water networks to take sort of overland flow and those type of things. So we always propose both sort of flips of the coin. Again, having that sustainable drive, because in the long term, like, you want to be sustainable. And you'd much rather have sort of rain gardens and tree pits like down a road than if you can make a road look prettier by introducing more trees and stuff. That's an added bonus that like the councils like as well. So it's pleasing everyone.
It's a win-win.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Really, really interesting. Honestly, I could ask a million questions here, but I know I've got more questions to ask you. So Josh, I'll come back to you if that's okay. Just on training and development, and it sounds as though you've kind of talked about it already, but you know, there is so much support there, and you know, if you've got that life kind of safety raft next to you if you need it. But tell me a bit more about any formal or informal training that you've had so far over the last 8 months.
Sorry, just before I start, can you hear a Hoover in the background, or is it okay? No,
I can't hear
okay,
it.
good. My housemate started and I thought I'd told them I was presenting something, but it's okay. So
at least you're doing hoovering.
Yeah,
It's
no,
fine.
it needs doing. It needs doing.
Yeah.
But you can't hear it. So I would say the training that I've had one formal course where it was sort of it was a bit higher than what I would expect to be sort of dealing with. It was like sort of going into how projects are priced and what goes into that. But one that I found really interesting and actually finished yesterday was in Reading, which was a graduate event. And it was a little bit more informal, and it was nice sort of to meet my cohort, as it were. And it was all about sort of what colour everyone is in day-to-day life, and so you could be like yellow, green, blue, red. I came out as yellow, I don't know if you can tell. But they basically put a questionnaire up before we went, and it was like 22 questions, and then at the end of it we've come out with a 22-page document telling us all about us, and it's pretty scary sort of how accurate it is. I actually have it next to me. I was reading it this morning. It's a bit weird.
Wow.
But no, that was really
what
good.
What does yellow mean? Sorry, Josh.
I'm yellow and green, so I'm social.
Right, tick. That's good.
Very fun to be around.
We're getting that.
Yeah.
Green is sort of I'm caring, and I think I'm a little bit sensitive. So just keep that in mind with your questions. But no, it's really good, and it was fun to see sort of what everyone was, because then it means you understand people a little bit more, how you might want to interact with them in the workplace. So it's interesting.
That's really interesting, Amy. Do you do that with all your grads every year? Is this a part of, so any students that are listening now thinking, I'd like to get involved with that when I start Stantec, is that something you do every year?
Yeah, so it's actually something we've just launched this year.
Okay.
All of these events are ongoing. I'm going to one on Monday in Edinburgh, so I'm kind of interested to see what colour I am, because I've done as well, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, it's something new, and we're looking to kind of develop people's softer skills as well as their technical skills as well.
Mhm.
So I think it's important, you know, to learn about yourself, how you work, what you should improve and things like that. So yeah, there'll be more of that throughout the scheme.
100%. That's, you know, and it's a great thing to, you know, to think about. Again, Josh, you're probably thinking about yourself now and thinking, you know, it's a bit anything that you maybe need to improve on. You know now that if you are a little bit sensitive, oh, okay, I know, you maybe acknowledging that now and something you might not have considered before.
I didn't think I was that sensitive, but the the document
You've been
said
sensitive about being sensitive.
no, but the document said that I can't take criticism very well, and that really annoyed me. So I don't know if that's like criticism within itself. But no, nothing. It wasn't. It sort of also told you sort of the do's and don'ts for interacting with like yourself and also other people's interacting with you. So it's interesting. I definitely sort of recognize who would be a red and a blue. So a lot of the time, because we're engineers, blue sort of like coordination. So everyone was quite high on that. And I think because we were grads, everyone was quite green and yellow, which sort of means you don't speak your points too much. So maybe I would say that's one thing I could improve on. Just speaking my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, I like that as well, that idea of, you know, when you are then communicating with others, you then think, oh, I think this person could be this, you know, and then, you know, when you are communicating, then think, all right, I understand how to respond to this person or how to communicate with them. So that's really interesting. I really like that. I've never heard that one before. Yeah, Amy, if you could send us that quiz. We're quite interested to do that internally. Omar, I'm going to come to you. Same question, training or informal, formal, that you've experienced so far that you enjoyed, what was useful?
So what Josh was talking about, that was a great event that we went to. I went to a different one, and
Okay.
Yeah, I thought the same. It's very good, not just only to know about yourself, but I went with my teammates, some of the people I've worked with before, so it's good to know what type of person they are, and you know, we forget how important to kind of know how sometimes to deal with people based on how they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very good in terms of that sense. But also I've done a lot of trainings that involved, you know, as part of the core graduate program. And Amy kind of talked about that, say there's some of it is technical, so like hydraulics, pipeline structures, and some of it is just a generic communication, commercial awareness, and sustainability, health and safety, and all these courses. I thought they were all, you know, very interesting, and you kind of learn about Stantec's approach towards, say, sustainability, health and safety, and you also learn about the industry, you know, the civil engineering, say, or you know, how it kind of like relates to the company.
So Amy mentioned earlier, and I'm just out of interest, are you thinking about becoming chartered in any way, shape or form, having like kind of that professional training as well? Is that something you are on the road to or open to?
Yes, so Stantec has a great, you know, program. You have a mentor assigned, or SCE, supervising civil engineer, and then a delegate civil engineer, and both of them will help you towards your chartership. So there's a kind of workbook that you can work on. You record all the stuff that you've been doing in the past, and then you speak to your delegate engineer. You kind of complete some quarterly reports as well, where it will be kind of reviewed by your delegate and supervising civil engineer. So they see what attributes may be linked to your chartership, and you can then record that on ICE for me. So you're you know, the institution.
So how are you, if you don't mind me asking, on that journey, if you could quite a bit of it, and when are you hoping that you could become chartered soon, or?
Yeah, I think it's I find that almost the case for most people here, that you have done so much but you didn't get the chance to record it, and that's sometimes a problem, because, you know, working in a company like this, for me, that I've worked on many different things that I can have so many attributes ticked off, I've recorded some of it, but I still feel that I have a lot that I can just, I need to sit down and write, have in writing. But I mean, hopefully if it could be maybe 2 years from now.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, no, that sounds good. In terms of, earlier you mentioned about health and safety and stuff like that, and it's something which I probably should have asked you all earlier. Do you get much kind of hands-on experience? Because, imagine like working on these projects where, just doing it from your office at your desk and not being able to go and kind of visualize exactly that environment, that location and things like that. Do you get much kind of hands-on going to the location to see the actual environment? And, have you experienced that so far in your role?
Yes, certainly. I think even if you don't have to go to the site, when you design something, health and safety is a big part of it. So when we, design, say for a thrust block, working on a pressurized pipeline, there could be a lot of risk coming with that, especially for people working behind that thrust block. And what could potentially happen if, something burst. These kind of things happened in the past, and we always kind of get things or documents to kind of warn us of how we as designers can consider what we call assured isolation, to make sure that there is more than one, say, isolation or closed valve to prevent these kind of things to happen. So it, as designers behind our computers or on site, we always have to consider these kind of things.
Absolutely. No, interesting. Thank you very much for that. Phoebe, going to come to you if that's okay. Similar question, going back to it, was training, formal and informal, and what have you experienced so far?
So like the others, I went on that grad event as well. And as a grad, you get sort of a bunch of training, whether it's sort of general about the company, and just sort of about what it's like to be in work, because a lot of grads come in not having necessarily that experience. So just sort of code of conduct, like how you should sort of be at work and those types of things. But then also the technical stuff. But I think the key thing to me for my like development, and you can class it as training really, is the sort of opportunities in the office environment. So we do a lot of what we call lunch and learns, where you learn during lunch. And sort of every week we'll have a presentation by maybe someone in the office, like 20 minutes about something they're working on. And I'm also part of a group called the DPG group, which is the Development Professional Group. Sorry, where everyone sort of in the similar stage of their career gets together monthly, and again, people present. And it's just a great way to learn about, maybe if it's someone in your team, something in more detail, but also the other teams in the office. You get to learn what they're looking at, what sort of projects Stantec gets involved in. And I find those types of things really great. And they're really encouraged by Stantec and your managers and your team. Sort of, we're always circulating different events that are going on, enticing people to go to them. And like, especially if it's in the office, if I'm getting up to go in the meeting, I'll be like, oh, do you want to come? Or someone else will be like, do you know this is on at lunch? Like, so those are the types of things that I find really crucial and good for my development, because they're things that you're not like, you get at lunch as well. But
Phoebe, when we were chatting this morning as well, you also mentioned about was it coffee connections that you do every month?
Yes, so coffee connections, so that's a thing that you can be involved in if you want to, where every month you're randomly joined with someone else from across Stantec, whether that's sort of globally, and then it's up to you guys to sort of arrange a coffee, mostly virtually, because they're never in the same country. So and then you just basically get to have a chat. So it's not necessarily about work, but you can learn about what they're doing and what they're working on, their sort of pressures as well. And it's just a great networking opportunity. And just because there's obviously so many offices globally. If you ever wanted to like think about moving to a different one, doing that, you can find out what they're working on, etc.
Phoebe,
Sorry, Amy, didn't you mention earlier that someone got matched with someone very important in the business?
Yeah, so
Oh,
one of
really?
my colleagues got matched with the CEO in Canada. So
Mhm.
yeah, you really could be matched with anyone. And I guess it's really good to make these connections across the business. As Phoebe said, you know, maybe if you did want to move overseas at some point, then you know someone, you've spoken to them. So yeah, it's definitely a really good thing that we do.
Fab.
I'm
Thank
still
you,
waiting
Amy.
for that meeting with the CEO.
Fingers crossed, keep getting in
Yeah.
every single
Yeah,
month.
absolutely.
I'm going to jump in now, Jess, because there's just something else that I wanted to kind of touch upon with Amy before we kind of go into more detail on the recruitment process, because I know one of the things that you've mentioned, you know, over the years working together is the employee resource groups that you have internally at Stantec and the sort of things that you could be getting involved with as a grad or anybody working at Stantec. So can you give us an overview of those types of things that happen as well?
Yeah, so the employee resource groups are, I guess, groups set up by employees. So anyone can join them. We've got a few different ones. So we've got the Pride, ERG, we've got neurodiversity, we've also got women at Stantec, and I believe there's a few other ones in the pipeline that are going to be set up for next year. So yeah, it's a really good chance for people across the business to come together, talk about ideas and ways that we can really kind of improve things within the business.
Yeah.
And also they do quite a lot of talks. So I know that there's been different kind of guest speakers. So for Black History Month, we had a guest speaker in talking to us about that. We've had one for Pride as well. And we've also got the Inclusion and Diversity Council. So that kind of brings everything together. Yeah, it's a good place to really learn more and also kind of put your ideas across. So you know, if you do have ideas, they will be listened to and considered.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing for, you know, the audience that'll be listening to us today, and anyone, you know, watching the recording of the webinar, that, you know, coming into a business like Stantec and any organization, you know, that's a big organization can come across quite daunting. But from everything that we've heard today is that your opinions are really valued. You know, you've got people that you can go to at any point to have these conversations with. So that's just an added benefit of having the employee resource groups there, as well as something kind of outside of that day-to-day, you know, work life, you know, that you've got that there that you can go and get involved with too. So that's great. Phoebe, just going to come back to you. I know we've obviously touched upon the training and informal training. Is there any other kind of social aspects of working as Stantec that you wanted to highlight for us today?
So yes, I'm actually on sort of the social team in my office. Sort of tried to invent it when I started, because after COVID it all sort of dropped off. But we try and organise an event for each month, and we do them both in and outside of the office, sort of tick all the boxes. We've done bingo in the office, which is quite fun. We all got together and watched the England match with KFC.
Lovely.
And we have sort of like food events as well, so we're having sort of a Christmas food party in December. So yeah, social is sort of a big thing on our list, and we always try and just other sort of events. So I also hold I called it the Great Stantec Bake Off, which is sort of like a sweepstake kind of thing, where everyone got a baker, and if your baker went out, then you had to bring in cake, which was a great way for all of us to eat loads of cake.
Perfect.
But it's just, I found when I started, if you put yourself forward to organise these things, then it was a great way for everyone to just suddenly know your name. And then in the office, everyone knew who you were, and it was a way to like speak to people, because I mean, you'd probably be going chasing for some money, but you speak to people and they know you, and if you're sending a really happy email each week about cake, then they're gonna like you.
Yeah.
So
everyone likes the lady who comes in with the cake.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely recommend that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Phoebe. And Josh and Omar, do you find that, you know, in your particular offices and areas that you also have quite a lot of social activities going on?
I would say, yeah, massively. There's two guys that currently run, going back to Phoebe's point of the DPG, it's run by two in our office, and they're brilliant at organising, you know, monthly get-togethers, quizzes, and sort of, even today, I was just looking at my emails, and we're creating a wall for the Farringdon office that is basically sort of the people's ideas for the jobs, or you know, the projects that they're involved in, what they would like to show on the wall. So it's always going on. So I really agree with that. I think it's brilliant.
And Omar, same with you?
Yeah, no, the same things as well for like DPG events. I've got a table tennis now in the office, which I like.
Wow.
Sometimes we get together after work.
Mm.
Yeah, so some really interesting events that we do just to get together.
Fantastic. I think that's a really important thing for anybody starting their career, is having that social aspect, meeting, especially if you relocated and you don't know a huge amount of people in the area. So it's great to hear that that's kind of supported in all the different offices, and grads can get involved in all these different things. Amy, going to come back to you now, just to hear, now that we've heard about all the amazing projects that everyone can do and the types of things working at Stantec, how do people apply? What's the recruitment process they would go through to get to where Josh, Omar and Phoebe would be?
Sure. So first step is going on to the Stantec Gradcracker hub, looking at all of our roles on there, and then just clicking through and putting your online application in. So there'll be a couple of questions that will ask you about just, why you're interested in the role. And then you just upload your CV and a cover letter. And then all of the applications will be reviewed by myself, Claire or Jenny. And then if successful, the next stage would be to complete the online assessments. So there's 2 online tests. So there's a numerical test and also a verbal reasoning test. And they're both timed. And then you'll also have an online video interview. So it's one of those ones where you go on and you record yourself answering some questions.
Yeah.
It's nothing too in-depth. It's really just to get to know you a little bit better, what you've been studying, what you're interested in, and things like that. And again, that will all be reviewed. And then if you are successful after that step, there would be a final interview. And that would be with usually 2 of the hiring managers from whichever team that you're applying for. Yeah. We're trying to do a lot more in person so that people can come in and actually meet people and see the office that they'll be in. But of course, we understand that some people, might not be in that location. Some people are all kind of spread out over the country. So we can still do some over Teams kind of video call. And that's it. So it's quite a simple process, not too many stages. And then, of course, after the final interview, one of the talent acquisition team would be in touch with you just to let you know what the outcome is, and take it from there.
Fantastic. I think it's quite comforting probably for our audience to hear that it is quite a simple process. There's not too many steps to go through. So that's brilliant. Any hints and tips that you would give our audience, Amy, to put in a successful application and then also to shine during that recruitment process? Yeah, so I'd say my number one thing is really tailor your application to whichever role you're applying for. Really make sure that you read the job advert. And so, for example, if you're applying for a role in the water team, show kind of projects that you've done that might be related to that. What was your dissertation on? Is it related to that? Any work experience, any kind of societies that you've joined at uni, just really kind of showcase examples and, show why you're really interested in the specific role. I would say that's the number one thing. Yeah. And again, during the interview process, it's, giving those examples, and I guess just relax and, just try and be yourself, It can be really nerve-wracking. I know some people doing their first interviews, but just relax and be yourself and just talk about what you've done. And I think if you're passionate about things, it'll really come across. It'll come across. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you, Amy. And then Josh, Omar and Phoebe, have you got any advice that you would give to your younger self applying to Stantec, or to anyone watching? What would you say to someone putting in that application right now? Josh, starting with you.
I was hoping Amy wouldn't say it, but as cringe as it sounds, just sort of be yourself. I feel like, at the end of the day, you're going to be working with these people if they do hire you. So just being your authentic self, sort of, showing your personality within the interview is probably the best. And I would also say from my personal experience about the mathematical and the reasoning tests, don't worry too much about those. Like, obviously do your best, but I panicked on them because I'm sensitive, and I thought I didn't do very well. But then apparently Claire, who's not here, she said that I came across really well in my interview. So it's a big part of just being yourself and settling into things. Don't think too much about it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Josh. And then Omar, coming to you, any advice?
Just kind of what Josh and Amy were saying, just be yourself. I think it's very important as well to kind of tailor your CV to what the role you're applying for. I know that like the generic civil engineering roles, I know that Stantec is water focused company, so you're likely going to be working on a project that is related to water. So maybe if you have done anything at uni related to kind of, you know, hydraulics, pipelines, and anything, make sure you kind of emphasize that. Yeah, that's
Brilliant. It's something we hear all the time, isn't it, Jess? Make sure you're tailoring your CV not just to the employer, but also to the role that you're applying to. So I think that's great advice. Thank you, Omar. Finally, Phoebe, anything that you want to throw into the mix for people to take note of?
Be yourself, obviously. That's very clear. But I think probably some advice is because obviously on Gradcracker there's going to be so many different roles, and don't be intimidated by the job title. So when I applied, I had zero idea what a urban drainage modeler was. I had no idea. But I just sort of read the description and read what you needed to have done at uni, etc. And I think, don't be scared by it. If you've got any questions, ask them. I mean, I'm sure the others will probably say the same thing, but if you wanted to add me on LinkedIn and ask questions, that's more than fine, because I think, just reading a job title can be sometimes quite difficult, but try and like figure out what it is, and then that'll trigger your interest, and then you'll be able to write a better application if you understand it more. And then, as they said, a tailored application is probably likely to succeed. So
I think it's a good point that reading and thoroughly understanding the job description is something that is so important throughout the whole recruitment process, and sometimes something that our students can overlook, just how important that piece of information is. So thank you very much for that, Phoebe. Okay, we're going to finish with a couple of really quick fire rounds. So just to finish, what is your favourite thing about working at Stantec? And starting with you, Amy.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of touching on what everyone's really said, but it is the people culture. I feel that everyone, I started last September, everyone since then has been so welcoming and helpful, and I think people are just really open, so it makes you feel like you can be yourself, and you don't need to worry about anything. So I'd definitely say, good people culture. You're always welcome, and any questions, people are always happy to help. So that's probably my favorite.
Lovely. And Omar?
My favorite thing, as you said, that people very welcoming and open here, and I think it's a very good thing to make or build connections with people who have been working in the field for years, and everyone is very willing to help you on anything or any questions you may have. So I like that culture of just supporting like the team culture.
Lovely. And Josh?
Not sure if anyone said it, but the people that I work with. Like genuinely, I feel like I enjoy my job, but because I love going in every day and seeing the people that I do work with, I feel like that's almost half the battle with, it can be quite daunting when you're first starting. So the people.
And Phoebe?
So I'll go to my second, because my first is the people, but I'll say opportunities, because the opportunities are endless. Anyone you speak to, if you want to get involved, you can. Nothing is ever a no. Just go for it, and you'll be able to do it. So the opportunities.
Brilliant. I think nice people. I think it's so important though, and it's so nice to hear that if you work with people that you get on with, it does make such a difference to everyday life. So that's lovely. Okay, and we're going to finish with a cool or interesting fact about Stantec. So coming back to you, Amy.
Yeah, so something that I just learned outside of our head office in Canada, the city council, I guess, allowed the employees to make a kind of colourful crosswalk mural, so kind of like a zebra crossing, but they made it all colourful for Pride and to represent some of the other ERGs. So I thought that was quite cool that the city actually allowed Stantec to do that. So
no, that's lovely, and you've got a nice colourful crosswalk in front of that office now forever. And Omar, cool or interesting fact about Stantec?
I like that there's a football league between the different offices in Stantec. We have so many different offices, and even I think one of the years that was pre-COVID, everyone went to Amsterdam, so we were taking part, competing against people in Amsterdam office, which is I thought very interesting.
Yeah.
So it's more just than within the UK, it's within the region as well.
No, that's lovely, and it's nice to have that inter-office sort of banter as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And Josh, coming to you.
Mine's not really a fact, but I really enjoy that there's so many specialist teams around the country, and even at the grad event, I was realizing how many people I might end up working with in the future. So I find that very sort of exciting and promising that the company has so many specialists in so many fields. Great, thank you, Josh. And finally, with you, Phoebe.
I mean, you stole my interesting fact earlier because it was going to be coffee connections, but
sorry.
I know when you said it, I was like, no. But I'll say an interesting fact is that we have a volunteering day every year called Stantec in the Community, where your office will go out and do some help in the local community. So this year we went out and painted some fencing for one of the local attractions, just to spice it up a little bit. But it's a great day where you get a free t-shirt and you're able to spend time with your colleagues outside doing something good.
Well, that's a lovely one. That's even better than coffee connections there, Phoebe.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for giving us such a great insight into Stantec today. It really has been amazing hearing about all your stories, everything that you've done. So really appreciate you taking the time to do that with us. The recording of the webinar will be available for everyone to watch later this afternoon on the Stantec Company Hub and in the Gradcracker Career Centre. We'll also then break this up into bite-sized chunks for you all to watch and share. So remember, our employers love it when you tell them that you've watched their webinar, as they know that means that you will already have a good understanding of their company, and it shows that you have a real interest in working for them. So make sure you go get your applications in for Stantec and let them know that you were here. Next week, we have a week off of our webinars before finishing the term with Severn Trent on the 15th of December. So register your interest for that one in the Career Centre. Thank you once again to everyone from Stantec, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.